April, hi. I think we are just letting people into the room on the dot of the hour before we start. So we'll give everybody 60, 90 seconds to log on. But lovely to see you.
You too.
And thank you to everyone joining. I can see the kind of counter adding one by one by one by one. Very glad to see people from around the world joining us today. And some of you will probably see that you've got a question that's popped up on your screen. If you have a moment, perhaps you'd like to answer that. What stage is your corporate alumni network? Do you have one? Not one at all. Launching soon. It's been around for a long time. Everyone might want to take a minute to answer that question whilst we let people in. And April, I'm very excited to talk to you today for lots of reasons, including I've got a surprise for you. For those that don't know everything about your brand and about the Alumni Network and the launch, in some ways I have Cooper Parry plastered across my arm today. So we'll leave that for a second.
I'm excited.
So we've given everyone a minute. We'll give them another 30 seconds and then off we go. Right. I think we're going to kick off. It seems like as good a time as any, and I can see that as people join slowly but surely, they can always catch up with us on a few questions. So, look, thank you very much for joining us, April. I think I will just introduce who you are to those that don't know you or haven't had a moment to have a quick read about what we're discussing today, which is effectively brand building through a creative alumni network. For those that don't know Cooper Parry, they are one of the fastest growing firms of accountants and business advisors in the United Kingdom. Never shy of doing things differently. I think you've taken what feels like much delight in flipping every stereotype anyone might have about an accountancy firm around your alumni network, which is an approach that I hope is paying off. You're going to tell us a little bit more. Certainly in terms of, from a business perspective, it's paying off because you're on the Sunday Times list of the UK's 100 best companies to work for. And last month, I think I saw that you were named a finalist in the 2024 UK and Ireland Inspiring Workplaces Awards. So April, a quick introduction to you. You are the Partner and Chief People Officer and have been with Cooper Parry for, I think, nearly 8 years.
Correct.
Global HR leadership roles before that, and with responsibility for people and culture. And of course, my name's Emma Sinclair and I'm Chief Executive of Enterprise Alumni. So April, thank you so much for being here today. You know that I'm really excited because I have loved the brand evolution of what you've called CP. You'll tell us a little bit more, the CP Forever Alumni Network. So could we kick off before we dig into all things alumni and give people a sense of what it is that I know and I'm excited about, which is the evolution of the brand. Can you talk us through a little bit of the 5, 6, 7 steps of what I assume was a couple of people at a desk quite a long time ago that were counting numbers into what has become CP Forever essentially now? We've got pictures as well. April, talk us through it. Give us the background.
Brilliant. Yeah, I won't go War and Peace for anyone that's worried about that. But essentially, I mean, Cooper Parry has been around a long time. So founded in 1850, so pretty old. The picture that you can see on the screen is the oldest known picture of Cooper Parry Partners. So Cooper Parry was already about 50 years old by this point, so already pretty established. And I think it's like Mr. Watson, with the guy with the dot on his head, I think was the founder, William Watson. I believe that's him. That's so the legend says anyway. So as you can imagine, fast forward, quite far ahead to the future, Cooper Parry was still an extremely traditional firm of accountants. As some of the very early branding, don't anybody try and read it. It's not that exciting. But blue, grey, very traditional typography, chartered accountants kind of on the bottom, something that accountants are very proud of, to be a chartered accountant. But yeah, very, very blue, very grey, very traditional. You kind of skip forward, I guess, to the early 2000s, and Cooper Parry decided that there was a group of new partners that came through, kind of a new generation and a new wave that had, a lot of them have worked with the Big Four. They'd left the Big Four because they wanted to be part of something different. They wanted to have fun, actually. That was probably a big driver, that outside of work, they were actually very fun people that had great hobbies and were interesting to talk to, but at work they felt the need to conform to what was a stereotypical accountant. And so this change and evolution of brand back then was the first step, and very different at the time. Cooper Parry were a Derby firm, still very local firm, but kind of, back when people had billboards with the paper.
Those people are calling in from all over the world who may not know Derby.
Okay, Derby is a small town in the middle of England, near Nottingham, near Robin Hood. So yeah, very, very kind of small, but first foray into doing something different. And there weren't a lot of accountancy firms kind of calling themselves ballsy back then.
Was that an advert? Was that an advert for the firm, all those balls?
Yeah, so that was on billboards through the town. They changed. Obviously, you can see the typography changed, would be much more simple. The chartered accountants disappeared. Bright, you can't really see on here, but the colours were very bright, kind of. So it was sort of pop art imagery, which was quite fashionable at the time. Really different, and made Cooper Parry stand out because it didn't say they were accountants. So people were seeing these and going, "Oh, hang on, what's that? Who are these people?" So it made people very inquisitive and very curious. And the brand has continued to evolve over years and is, become more sophisticated, I guess. That was different then. When we moved into the Birmingham market, which for those that don't know is I think the biggest city, one of the biggest cities in Europe, second biggest city or something in Europe. So we acquired a firm of accountants in Birmingham, and part of that was some of the rebranding. And these were some of the images that we posted around Birmingham area to kind of say that we're coming to town, we're new around here, and we're going to change how you see accountancy firms. So this was an evolution of the brand back then. So still fun, still colourful, just a little bit more sophisticated from some of that early evolution. And then it has continued to evolve further. So I think there's another image there. This was a real kind of groundbreaking shift in our brand. So again, still colourful, still very impactful, but it was the first time that rather than a group of marketing people sitting in a room and going, this is what the brand should look like, we actually did a phenomenal amount of crowdsourcing within the business. So we went out to everybody that worked for Cooper Parry and said, tell us give us an image of what, depicts Cooper Parry to you. What are we about? What, if you saw this, what makes you think of Cooper Parry? What do you imagine in your head? And we had literally a bank of ideas. And Steve Noss, who is our head of brand, one of the most creative men you will ever wish to meet, also one of the nicest men you could ever wish to meet. He's a creative genius. He really is a creative genius. And he came up with these 5 masterpieces of artwork, essentially, that incorporated all of the crowdsourcing from people within Cooper Parry. And the idea being that you could cut and slice these images to take slithers of them to put on the bottom of a presentation, half to put on a pitch document. People could use them in a way that was suitable for the client that they were visiting or the prospective client. So there's bits about healthcare on there for a healthcare sector, bits about retail, there's nods to our history. So you can really kind of play around with these to make them feel a bit more aligned to the client, but also they just embody what we're about. And we've stuck with the masterpieces because now they're so changeable and we can add images to these as we continue to evolve, that the masterpieces are, we have these masterpieces hung in our office as well as actual pieces of artwork. They're fun. And yeah, that's kind of where our brand is up to as of today. And
here we go. And here is, so this is, I'm starting to see the journey you're taking us on now, because I know this is your last slide and I see CP Forever, which for those of us that know about your alumni network, you're about to tell us that's what it is. But the reason I asked about your brand is I remember seeing this image before you launched in our office and someone showing it to me and saying, isn't this fun and fabulous? I'm wondering, why is there a grass cow? So could you tell everybody where we're ending up on to start the real conversation about alumni and all these images?
Yeah, so the bull is, this particular bull is Pablo the bull. We also have a big pink bull called Billy the bull, which sits outside of our office. Is huge. And the bull came about when we broke into the Birmingham market. So it was the first time that Cooper Parry had gone from being an East Midlands firm to being then a Midlands firm. And Birmingham is famous for the Bull Ring. So it's a big shopping centre for those that don't know. And when we opened the Birmingham office, I could talk about this a lot more, but essentially when the employees from the acquired business came into the new Cooper Parry office their first day, which was their old office, we'd we'd redecorated, we'd got rid of all the blue-grey walls, and there was tons of colour put in. But one of the first things that they saw when they walked through the door was a huge pink resin bull. So it was a signal of, it's a time of change. It's, you know, you're in a different place now, and it wasn't just about a different coloured wall or a bull. It was about a signal of a real change of culture and a real change from the traditional to something more forward thinking. And the second bull we got, the green bull you see there, which is the grass bull, which sits in our office here, we actually took on tour for all of our careers fairs. So we would go to universities, and we had Pablo the bull on the back of a van down the motorway, taking him to different careers fair, and it just was a massive talking point for us. Which is why he's now on the masterpiece. It's part of, you know, he is part of Cooper Parry and always will be part of the story now. And
I guess, you know, the story begins, the heart right in the middle, CP Forever, is the name of your alumni network. Was CP Forever something that existed pre the network? Because actually, I think what would be great to do is now to kick in and understand, you know, how did your program get started? I will preface that, April, with saying I moved into a new office yesterday, and you just talked about no more old blue-grey walls, but you did talk about pink things. So I'm step one into making the space a little bit more exciting, but you said that, it made me joke backwards. Tell us a little bit about how the Alumni Network started.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, CP Forever, the brand of CP Forever came about because we always spoke about people that leave Cooper Parry. We didn't want it to be goodbye. We wanted it to be that actually they still played a really important part in the journey wherever we were, and therefore, you know, once a CP, always a CP, essentially. And no matter what people go on to do, you know, we hope that, you know, majority of the time they leave as friends, and who knows whether they come back to us. Often, you know, they might go into industry, they become a client. So it was, you know, you're always part of the fabric. And I remember when we were talking about the alumni and, you know, being connected to CP Forever in some way, the image of a tattoo just popped into my head. And Steve and I were talking about it, and I said, I've got this idea of a tattoo. And there you go, that's the tattoo.
I've been saving it for this webinar. I have been on my desk since the day you launched, and I was like, I know we will do a webinar. So I put it on this morning, and I've been walking around, and people have asked me if I've got a new tattoo because they didn't see the CP bit. So that's what everybody, April, is talking about, the CP Forever tattoo. I just want to emphasize it's not going to be on here forever.
Oh, you need to get it done permanently. It suits you. So yeah, that idea then evolved with Steve's creative genius that it is into the imagery you see today, and that started to kind of really grow the visual brand of what we wanted the alumni to be like. We knew we wanted it to be impactful, and for people to see it and go, okay, this isn't going to be boring. This isn't just going to be, it's not going to not be fun. We wanted the alumni to feel like the journey of Cooper Parry is you go on the website and you get an idea of what Cooper Parry is like, and then you come to our office, and, you know, common thing that people say is, I feel like I've stepped into the website, and then they live and breathe Cooper Parry, and they're like, I feel what I saw on the website has come to life, and that's real. And it's not just an office. It's there's a buzz and there's excitement and there's culture. And so when you leave, we still want that to continue and that feeling to come through, and hopefully that's what we've embodied in the branding of the alumni so far.
And if not, you can whack a tattoo on everybody.
So yeah, when we had our launch party, we had a load of the tattoos that you've got. We had kind of a guy with a fake tattoo booth, and he was putting the tattoos on people. It's good fun.
Yeah, amazing. Well, look, so maybe we can start at the beginning of the kind of corporate alumni journey. So that is a super helpful background, and also it just explains some of the colour and in many ways the reasons behind which you've been able to be bold with a lot of flair in an alumni brand. And of course, for those that don't know you, I know that you're highly acquisitive, and I guess this is just making sure that the kind of CP brand and everything it stands for stays alive. Can you just tell us a little bit about, you know, who started this? Who said we must do alumni, and how did it come to sit with you? Is this a cross-department collaboration? Is this, I know, you know, you're the sponsor. Did it start with you saying we must do this? Can you talk us through the sort of gems of this? Because I know one of the things that people think about a lot is where this should sit, who should sponsor it, Or there is an alumni initiative, but we need some more money and budget. Where do I go to? Can you give us a bit of a feel for that?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that we're quite big advocates of is something called the ELTV, which is the Employee Lifetime Value Model. You Google it. I mean, it's not our model; we stole it. Like, you know, lots of good things we borrow, steal, and then turn it into our own. But the ELTV model, if you Google it, is really straightforward. It talks about, you know, that essentially the value that you get from your employees from the moment that you start the hiring process, really, then through into their employment with you and how you develop them and grow them and how that kind of helps you to increase the value. But then once they've left, what typically happens is the value decreases because they're not working for you anymore. So the key is if you can maintain that value after they've left as well, then you're onto a real winner. So that's kind of how we started to think about the alumni. Aid, who's our CEO, Aid Cheetham, was a huge driving force to get the alumni off the ground. Aligned to the ELTV, it was like we need to build a really thriving alumni here. Actually, we're missing out on something in connecting people that have worked for us and have been part of the story. So really, he was the big driver for it. There were two thoughts really, whether it's that within the people team, because obviously it's our people that have worked for us and it's very, very people centric, or did it sit with our marketing team? Because we saw that there could be a lot of value in potentially referring client work through it. But as time went on, actually, what we realised was it was much bigger than that. It wasn't just about getting clients from people that had left before and that had gone perhaps into industry. There's so many facets to the alumni. One is it's just really good to connect with people, right? If you've worked with good people, why would you not want to stay connected to them? For sharing best practice, for sharing ideas. It's a great funnel for boomerang hires. We get a lot of boomerang hires anyway. So people that have perhaps gone on to, before we had office space in London, we had people that moved to London and wanted to work in London. As soon as we opened office space in London, they came back. Had we had a thriving alumni at that time, it probably would have been much easier to connect with some of those people and get those back into the space more quickly. And then obviously there is a client benefit as well there in terms of those that have gone on to work in industry and as FDs and so on and become clients of ours. So there's so many strands to it, but ultimately at its heart, it's about connecting people together, which is why it sat with me. Our culture is broader than just why she worked for us, and our brand is very much our culture. So it felt like a very natural place, but it's still an extremely collaborative process. I've spoken about Steve, who's our creative guy. He sits within the marketing team. We will be looking at, as we start to build the alumni to a bigger pool of people, where can we, our marketing team run a lot of different events, like our FD seminar, our retail seminar, which are the best alumni members to attend those kinds of events? Where can we really leverage the pool of people? Also, how can we get feedback from our alumni on what events have been successful, both for prospective clients and existing clients? So it's there's a real holistic approach to it across the whole board, but I'm the sponsor.
So effectively what you're saying is you're planning on including alumni in all elements of your business, just making it sure it's relevant and contextual. But a lot of our customers are global. Some of our customers are domestic. Domestic in the UK is a different affair to domestic in Canada, mm-hmm. or the United States, or the UAE or Singapore. But in many ways, the UK is a reasonably small island. Can you talk us through a little bit about how you launched this? Because sometimes there are events, sometimes it's heavily digital. You are a Midlands, a firm that originated in what we in the United Kingdom call the Midlands, so a particular patch of the UK, but of course have been acquiring all across the UK. So you've got sort of skies the scale now. Can you talk to us a bit about how this got launched?
Yeah, so we do have the luxury of being in a relative contained space. So the physical meetups and get-togethers are something that is very important to us at the moment. I think as we grow and scale, we need to consider how we do capture a more digital audience. And actually, we have people that have gone on to live in all over different corners of the world that haven't been able to attend some of our events and have said, I want to be involved. How can I be involved? So that's something for us to start to think about as we broaden. But yeah, we launched, so we kicked off with a launch party at our Skyview office here, mainly because most of our alumni have originated from the Midlands. So most people that have left are predominantly Midlands based. So we knew we'd get kind of a bigger pool of people attend that first event. And we wanted to make that event just really good fun. There was no agenda at that event at all to, get people to tell us where they were working or sign up to, be a potential client or tell us people they knew that they might work for us. It was just to get together, reminisce, have some fun, and be really informal and share a little bit more about the plans that we've got for the alumni and how it works. That was the brief. That was it. So we had a great evening. We kind of blended the old with the new. So we had I mentioned Cooper Parry's been around since 1850. The penny farthing also happened to be invented in the 1850-ish. Someone probably correct me on that. But so we had a guy riding a penny farthing outside, kind of welcoming everybody in. We had a magician. We had music, kind of disco. We had the tattoo guy, and just loads of people chatting and mingling and sharing stories. It was a really, really, a really wholesome evening, actually, of just getting together. And we've got our second event tomorrow evening. Wow. So we've got bongo bingo tomorrow evening. Again, just a really fun event, crazy disco bingo. And again, just an opportunity for people to connect and get together. But tomorrow, one of the key things we want to get out of that is to get some feedback on how people are finding the alumni so far, because it is very much in its infancy. So what's working for them? What would they like to see? What kind of events do they want? Try not to assume what people might want, but to understand how they're going to get the most out of the alumni for themselves, and really start to then shape it further off the back of that feedback.
Awesome. Well, first of all, you are the first person who's ever mentioned a launched alumni disco to me, and I've been doing this a long time. You are definitely the first person that's ever uttered the phrase alumni bongo bingo. But you're doing the United Kingdom proud. Just want to add one moment, April, before we carry on, that there are already lots of questions popping up which come through to April and I, which we'll go through as quickly as we can. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat as we go along, and I'll either pull them in at the right time, or we can ask them at the end. So thank you to everyone that's popped some in there, and we'll endeavour to get through them as fast as possible. So I guess, look, April, I've got another 5-10 questions that I'd love to run through, and then let's go to those that are on other people's minds. We've asked to focus a bit about brand identity here, because you've been so specific with that in how you've presented the alumni network, and it's had a brand almost of its own, even though it's very much an extension of Cooper Parry. Can you talk a little bit about, what are the Cooper Parry values, and how have you articulated them in the alumni program and network? And I think we've definitely got that element of fun and connection and history weaved in. But from a professional perspective, and as you grow the firm and go from hundreds to what is now thousands, how's alumni supporting that?
Yeah, I think as we grow, it's going to become even more critical that we've got a thriving alumni, and actually it's one of the reasons why we have gone with yourselves to kind of have our portal for the alumni, because we were sort of playing that a little bit before through LinkedIn and various other forms, and that's great to a degree, but what we're finding is that it's actually not everybody's on LinkedIn. Some people are leaving for other reasons, they're retiring, they're just not interested in LinkedIn. So we needed to professionalize. I think that's the word I used to when we first kind of met and started talking about it. We need to professionalize the alumni really and get serious about it. So using a system and a software like Alumni Enterprise Alumni has really, really helped with that. Because we were able to capture data in a much better way. We're able to communicate with the alumni network in a much broader sense. So, I mean, not just saying this to kind of blow smoke, it genuinely is a great tool that we're finding very helpful. And we're still building that and still finding our way with it. But we can definitely see the value in how that's going to allow us to target certain groups within the alumni as we grow. So, yeah, we acquired another business 6 months ago, and with that sort of tripled in size pretty much overnight. So with that growth, also our alumni is going, we will have more levers as time goes on, and there's further growth plans for Cooper Parry as well. So to try and manage that on LinkedIn just isn't practical, but to have a system where we can chop and sort and crop data to people that work in certain industries, or people that are in certain job roles or skill sets, or their interests, we can really start to target some of those events and some of those, particularly kind of best practice events and roundtable type events. It's going to be critical for that.
Super helpful, thank you. And I guess you can only assess what people want when you know who they are and where they are. And as you say, you can't slice or dice people without a tool. Once you get beyond a couple of hundred people, I'm going to slip in a quick question that we've been asked here from someone from the airline industry, because you were just talking about the fact that you were acquisitive. And sometimes people don't necessarily identify with the brand, I'm sure Cooper Parry, but identify with another brand. So the question that we've got here is, how did you promote the alumni program to employees who separated from the company years ago? So what options are there if we want to restore those relationships? And I think that question stems from lots of places, but partially in saying, okay, for your firm, April, Cooper Parry today is not what Cooper Parry was. There are lots of small firms. I know 3 or 4 firms you've acquired in the last 18 months that anyone that left there 2 years ago wouldn't necessarily feel any connection there. So have you thought about that? How have you approached that? And is that on the agenda if it's not something that you've done yet?
Yeah, it is. So I mentioned, those that aren't on LinkedIn, and particularly some of the older generations that have never been on LinkedIn because it wasn't even around when they worked for Cooper Parry way back when. But what we're finding is that actually for the kind of older generations, Facebook is a really useful tool. So the young people, the Gen Zs and they're not, Facebook's like for old people, but I'm of the generation of Facebook, but so are my parents. So and so we've been able to target quite a few people through other social media streams because at the moment we've got 6 generations of people working at Cooper Parry.
Wow.
So that in itself presents its own challenges, but for the alumni, it's been very valuable because we've got people that have been here a long time. They're still connected to people, so we've had to really leverage our internal workforce to help promote it. So we've tried to involve everybody. So when I mentioned it's collaborative, it truly is collaborative in the sense that we've sent out a lot of communications internally to explain to people what the alumni is, why we're doing it, the events we've got, asking them to promote, asking them to tap into people that they know that used to work for us. Whether we do anything else in terms of other kind of press or anything, I don't know. It may be at some point, but at the moment, we're able to capture kind of a number of different generations. We still probably haven't captured some of those that worked for Cooper Parry a long time ago. So Cooper Parry has gone through multiple iterations of its brand and its name through years ago acquisitions, and we haven't really captured them, and that would be nice because I think they'd have some great stories to share. They're not going to come and work for us again, they're not going to refer clients, but what they will do is really enrich the pool of people that we've got in our alumni. So yeah,
the stories, right? The stuff. I mean, I read a lot of alumni spotlights, and I absolutely love the ones that are from people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, sometimes even older. They'll be like, I remember when this office. And what's interesting is, and it might happen with you over time, if we've got lots of customers who either put logos of past brands of companies that they acquired on the front saying, we stand on the shoulders of giants. These are the people that came before us. There are some companies who have different landing pages for different brands. So if today you identify with Cooper Parry and you left, but maybe 50 years ago the firm had a completely different name and there are lots of people from there you want to stay in touch with. There are also lots of other ways to give people a kind of shop window with the brand that they identify with, but then still become part of the wider alumni network. But I know that you're...
Great idea.
Yeah, and then that's, for companies that have acquired huge brands, I think that's probably makes lots of sense. I wonder if we can kind of move now a little bit more into alumni itself. So I guess I've got a few questions for you. I remember the post from your CEO the day this launched, and it was just so, like a lot of launches, it was gorgeous, but it was also hugely personal because there was an extraordinary number of people that did a lot of reminiscing and a lot of tagging. What was the reaction from your side of things? As I was spectating here, on social media and on the platform, but what was the reaction from your alumni and your employees actually to the alumni program and doing this in a more specific, intentional way?
Yeah, so there was a lot of excitement about our launch party specifically. Just the opportunities. We've been very well known in the past anyway for our internal social activity and events. And so if you've been exposed to that and you're not part of Cooper Parry anymore, the opportunity to be able to get involved again in something that we like to put on a good show, essentially. So there was a lot of excitement around that. I think it was very powerful to have Aid send a message out, because I've been at Cooper Parry 8 years, which in the grand scheme of things is not a very long period of time. No. Aid's been around much longer than me, and so it was really important to have that visibility from him, and he's connected to a lot. He was actually messaging people direct on LinkedIn, reaching out to them as individuals, saying, really love to see you at the event, it'd be great to catch up. That went a long way with a lot of people, that maybe were like, oh, do I not get involved in this? There was a real personal touch, and that nobody told him to do that. He just did that, because I think he wanted it to be a good night, and he wanted there to be lots of faces there. And
well, it's going to be a disco. You've got to have people there to party, haven't you?
Exactly, yeah, we can be popping on our own, but probably not that cool. And yeah, internally we had a lot of people internal sharing as well. And then at the event itself, we wanted to make sure that there was a good representation from some, so we've got some partners that have been in the business 30 plus years. They were there. There was those of us that were kind of not been around as long in the grand scheme. So it was it was really nice as people were walking through the door, arriving on that day, to go, oh, I've been really looking forward to this. I've been really excited about it. And then I remember sitting back and just kind of stopping to watch the event kind of go on around me at one point, and all I could see was like smiles and and people giggling and laughing at stuff, and that's what it's about, because that's what life at Cooper Parry is about for me, and for us, is to create an environment where people actually want to come to work and enjoy it. And so to have people come back into Cooper Parry environment, even if they never worked at this office, and that emotion to be there, that's happy and buzzing, is, I know it sounds cheesy and a bit,
It doesn't. Well, I don't think it will do to almost everyone listening. I mean, even those who are, as we term it, alumni curious, as opposed to having an alumni network, right? We all recognise the value of connections, right? We all understand what warm fuzzies are. They just don't make a business case. So actually, potentially you're talking about the warm fuzzies, and that does actually have enormous business value. It's just not something you can do a paper for the board on, right?
Yeah, it's harder to quantify, right? But it's valuable, and we've seen that tenfold within Cooper Parry, is creating an environment that people actually want to work in. They stay. They're more likely to refer their friends as to work for us. They're more likely to recommend people to come and be clients for us. They're more likely to stick around longer, and also they'll be happier not just in work but outside of work, because they go home and they've had a good day at work. I know what I'm like. If I've had a bad day at work, I'm not a particularly nice person to be at home with. If I've had a good day at work, I'm a much nicer person to be around with at home. So it's the greater impact of just being at work.
And employees, I mean, do they get on? Because lots of people ask us, should employees be involved? Should they be invited? I know that you're a firm of, you're under 5,000 people, which is different to a enormous bank, for example. Lots of people from banks listening in, it's 150,000 people, right? And you can't have a launch event in a city that gets most people. Very different affair, but essentially we're talking here about brand. But still, for sort of to think about yours, were your employees involved, and what happened with the new employees who are from the acquired firms? Were they interested in people from the past?
Yeah, it's been a bit harder to include those, because the alumni hasn't incorporated people that were left their business. But I think as time goes on, they'll get more involved in it as people kind of leave and move on and go off to do different things. So it's been predominantly kind of legacy Cooper Parry people that have been more engaged in it to date. And yeah, to varying degrees. I think people are kind of, the question is, do I join the alumni? Because obviously we've got the software. Do I join the tool or not? Do I interact with that? So we've just been able to explain to them how they can get involved. And actually coming to the events is probably the biggest way that they can get involved, and sharing and promoting the alumni. But we've had people that have left in recent weeks, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to come to alumni events now. I can't wait to be part of the alumni. That wasn't something we really had before. People would say, I'll stay in touch, but now they've got a real tangible thing to stay in touch for, and we obviously incorporated it in our kind of lever process, that they get a link straight away to join. And so immediately from the day that they're no longer on our PAYE, they are in our alumni, and that's kind of...
So people are offboarded days before they leave, after they leave? I know this is quite new, right? So you've got a long journey to how this is going to evolve in your business, but people are, it's thanks, goodbye, but click here to be part of the network.
Yeah, so before they've left the building, essentially, they'll get, as part of kind of their lever process. We've loved having you as part of the Cooper Parry journey. It's not over. click here, become part of the alumni. So yeah, we're making that very much a standard part of the process now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And so that's a little bit about the reaction from alumni and from employees. A question I'd like to ask you, look, I know that the initial intention here is very much brand, right? This is we want to stay in touch with you and lots of beautiful things will happen for all of us. But what would you say in the first kind of year is your goal for what's in it for alumni? Do you see that evolving? And what do you think is important? And I will weave in, there's a lot of questions here, asking questions effectively about the interactivity of the tool. And whilst I would be delighted to spend the whole time talking about enterprise alumni, that's not what we're here to. But essentially, there are lots of questions saying, you know, is it possible to have social connections? Are you thinking about pulling in jobs, alumni spotlights? Are you doing that? I know those are in your newsletters, but what are you hoping to kind of give people for the first year? Is there a KPI? Is there a goal?
No, not at the moment. We do, so with the software that we're using through you guys, we are able to put jobs on there. So we have got a link to job postings as well, because why would we not want great people to come back and work for us? That's an easy win. We are doing spotlights as well. We've only done a couple so far, but they've been really fun. And with more of those, a combination of video spotlights and kind of interview, quick fire question spotlights. One of the things we'd like to do is we've got quite a lot of people from Cooper Parry that have left, but they've gone on to do like great things. So like set up their own businesses, and we've got quite an entrepreneurial nature. So a lot of people that have got that entrepreneurial mindset. And what we'd love to do is almost have like a wall of fame. So all of those people that have gone on to do great things, but then a bit of a marketplace on the software tool so that people can start to network with each other. So it's not just about like, what do we get out of it, but what do they get from each other in terms of, well, actually that person now is a, website designer, and I think I could utilize them as a service, using those tools that other people have got that have previously worked for us, because you kind of know, look, that's someone quite like-minded. They've worked for a business that was like-minded. There's something in, our values you asked about before, a be nice, play all in, keep learning, be brave, in it together. If you've worked for Cooper Parry, you probably embody those values and believe in those values. They're just like good, common, decent human behaviors, right? So if you can connect with other people that have got a business and work together and have some reciprocal work there, brilliant. That's a great way of utilizing the community.
Yeah, and I guess I always say, if you just give without expecting to receive, then good things happen. But we know very, very well, and we'll talk a little bit at the end about sort of the kind of corporate goals for this. But of course, this is boomerang hires, this is revenue, this is brands, this is business development. There are loads of all those good things from here. We've got a couple of questions about kind of your launch in the early days. And one person noted they joined late, so I'm going to give a flash of my tattoo again. I've got a lot of questions here saying, we know that lots of people offer discounts, benefits, perks, which of course you absolutely, yes, can do through the platform. Have you offered any sign-up perks or event gifts? So for the person who said they're late, I just want to demonstrate the Cooper Parry tattoo, which I got a long time ago from April, but have been saving to stick on my arm for the webinar because it felt the most appropriate time to wear it. But other than sticking tattoos, temporary tattoos, I might add, on your alumni at your launch parties and discos, have you thought about perks, gifts, or presumably, given that you're CHRO of Cooper Parry, you must have perks, learning, things you offer your employees. Are you thinking of extending those to people after they leave? Have you already done that?
Yeah, so obviously there's the discounts available within the software, but we are going to expand that. So we've got our benefits provider that we utilise. We've got access to a load of perks there. So we've just agreed with them. There was some complications about how we logistically make it happen, but we've found a way to do that. So we've got a link that's going on to the portal that people will be able to access a ton of other perks, which would be great. It's largely the same perks that you get if you're an employee, in terms of kind of lifestyle discounts and that kind of stuff. In terms of like swag, so yeah, we are looking at swag. We've put out a bit of a poll to the people that have joined so far to ask them what kind of things we want, because we don't want to just throw like stuff at people in a world where we're trying to be kind of more environmentally conscious of stuff, but we have something that we launched a while ago called our CP Vets, and that's specifically for our like CP veterans, so those that have retired with Cooper Parry. So when they retire, they get a baseball jacket with CP and their initials and a cap, and it's just a fun thing to do as they leave on their last day through kind of like, you know, what do you call it? Everyone's got their arms up, you know. It's just a nice touch. But the CP vets thing's gone down really well, so we're looking at whether we introduce some kind of swag for alumni. We have internally we have something called CP houses, which is essentially a bit like Harry Potter, I guess, that when you join, you're assigned to a house. Our houses are named after values, and we have numerous events throughout the year that might be sporting events, football tournaments, various other things where you play for your house and then you earn points throughout the year. So you get a house hoodie when you join and a house water bottle and bits and bobs. So we'll probably mirror some of the kind of swag that we do for that for our alumni. And then when we do have events, because we'd like to start doing some things like that, you know, like CP alumni versus CP current kind of football tournaments, and they can wear their merch then.
Awesome. I mean, all I heard there is I'm getting a CP Forever bomber jacket for my birthday. But some of our customers offer discounts, perks, benefits, some of the things that you're talking about. Some of it's fun, some of it's topical. Sometimes if it's a retailer, it's a brand that they own, or candy or something of that ilk. But obviously you're an accounting firm and you have lots of accounting professionals who need to do continuous learning to maintain qualifications. Are you also, from a very professional perspective, still planning on supporting in that regard, or is it a bit lighter touch?
Yeah, so not so much formal CPD, but certainly a number of the kind of roundtables and best practice events. We think we'll get a lot of value from that, and they'll get a lot of value from that. So we run quite a few different events like that already. They're not formalised CPD, but it's something to think about actually. It's how we can kind of make that happen, because yeah, it would be a big draw.
Yeah, and you know, obviously we're very pleased to have lots of customers in the professional services space, and that is something to think about, because that's, you know, certainly for bigger firms as well, that's a way that they can really add genuine professional value, as well as for kind of the warm fuzzies. The last part that I'd really like to talk about is a little bit more kind of corporate and a little bit more structured, but I'm going to take a moment, if I may, to just take some of the questions from some of the people that have joined us today. They're a little bit more practical. We've got a question here from BLG, who are asking you about resourcing, essentially. Is there a specific alumni team helping to grow this, to build this, to integrate this across the business? Or, April, are you doing this yourself?
We don't have a team, unfortunately, not yet. But no, it's not just me though. So obviously myself, I have a lovely lady called Nicola who's helping with a lot of the kind of behind the scenes admin, coordinating the events and so on. She's been a lifesaver. And then Steve, obviously from a marketing side. So the marketing team have kind of helped with collateral. And then a lot of at the moment, the idea generation is coming from myself and Aid, kind of talking about what's working, what's not working, and then again using that crowdsourcing from the alumni group is going to be critical. But hopefully, in time it will really build some momentum, and we can start to put a bit more of a team in place. And certainly as we grow, and therefore then the alumni grows, becomes a beast in its own right, doesn't it? In all honesty, we probably could have done with a couple more hands on deck, sort of through the implementation phase, but it's new. It's we haven't spent a lot of money on, because we have great internal branding resource that we've been able to utilize. We haven't had to spend loads of money, a bit of money on events, obviously investment in the software, but it's ultimately we've been light touch on resource so far. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's also a nature of how quickly you start and size of your firm, because so we've got a managed services team here for some people who where we step in, help to resource alumni networks, because sometimes there's a journey to build a business case. People want to get started quickly, but they want to have a tool, which goes back to where you started with wanting data analytics and starting well. We also have, some people who start with a few hours a week, with a few people on the side of their desk just to get this going, for it to have momentum, and then be able to build out that business case that says, right, one customer is worth X. Imagine if we get 1% or 10% of the alumni network as a new business, or 5% of people as boomerangs. Lots of ways to build a business case. Equally, there are some, we can see who's on the line, and we've got people from all sorts of sizes and shapes of companies who start with huge teams, and also have people here at Enterprise Alumni who are dedicated to support them. So you're, in many ways, you started really, really quickly. You had CEO and, of course, yourself, CHRO sponsorship. And I think, your motto, as I remember last year, was, let's get the show on the road really quickly. and then build as we go along, which suits some and doesn't suit others.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go to our time flies, and there's lots more questions, but I have a couple more that I wanted to get through that are a bit more structural. So whilst it's not all about the numbers at Cooper Parry, and you showed us the slightly boring accounting stuff at the beginning that we all think about from some of the old accounting firms, but as an accounting firm, I'm assuming there are some metrics being considered. So what is success? You talked to us about it being brand now. Do you have a plan about what success and ROI might start to look like beyond culture and brand values over time? And maybe you can weave in a little bit about your future plans, noting, as we just said, that you wanted to get cracking and there's a lot to do. But what does the next 6, 12, 18 months look like for you?
Yeah, so really just building on the momentum. We had a great launch event, as I mentioned, but a launch event on its own isn't going to kind of hold up the alumni, and so we need to make sure that there's kind of regular content. So a lot of content creation is going to be a big focus, putting a 12-month plan in place for how we're going to kind of drip feed information, drip feed interesting articles, an events timeline. And again, we've not put a whole full 12 months timeline together yet, because we've done a couple of social things. But what we really need to now figure out is what do people want from the alumni now we've started to connect. So no specific ROI targets at the moment. I have no doubt that will come. Aid is an accountant by nature himself, so there's time invested in it. We need to see that there's some impact. Is it driving new clients? Is it driving return hires? But I mean, ultimately, there is that, again, we spoke about it not being able to quantify it, but the awareness that when you come to Cooper Parry, you are always part of the story. We're grateful for the role that people have played. That has unspoken, impact on the legacy of Cooper Parry and people. I mean, we've got a couple of people started this week. One of them whose mum used to work here, she now starts. We've got people that want to do work experience because they hear about what it's like to work at Cooper Parry, and their family is still in the alumni. And they're like, oh, well, actually, can my son and daughter come for work experience? That turns into a work placement. That turns into a permanent job. That turns into a great hire of somebody that's already motivated, engaged in what Cooper Parry is about. So you're starting. When we talk about that ELTV and the lifetime value that they can add, they're actually hitting the ground running because they're joining already fully engaged in what we're about culturally. And that shouldn't be underestimated, because our clients have come now to expect a certain type of person to work for Cooper Parry. That we're very overt with our culture and with our brand with our clients, which again is another topic I'll get into in terms of the evolution of client profile that likes the kind of environment that we've got and the kind of office we've got, and there's music playing outside when you pull up in the car park and all that. It takes a certain type of client to like that, and it takes a certain type of person to work with clients like that. So it's a circle.
100%. Money in many ways can't buy that, right? Multi-generational businesses with a culture that you don't have to explain. We've got a lot of retailers, family-owned businesses that are now very large across the world, actually, where that happens. But that's a bit of magic that you can't entirely manufacture. It was also interesting you say effectively there's no specific ROI in year one, which for anyone listening that's an alumni manager seeking budget might be frustrating, but it's actually in many ways alumni starts in a different way in different businesses. You're the CHRO and the CEO sponsored this, and a decision was made that clearly this made sense. Of course, there are lots of other ways to approach this, and I guess if you had your CHRO hat on only, you'd be looking at boomerang hires and employer branding and referrals.
And actually, we're PE backed, and our private equity backers, they and others see the value of having a thriving alumni too. It's kind of one of the questions that they'd asked us too, around our alumni. And so even though we can't go to them with any hard facts and figures, they still see that there is value in that, and that makes us very attractive to future investors as well, that we've got a thriving alumni, because it says a lot about the makeup of the company and the culture and the legacy. So it's attractive to PE houses as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all talked during COVID about the importance of being able to access people immediately and digitally. That's not just your people, right? That's more people. So I can understand why that would be the case.
One of the other things as well is we want to really build out more of our variable workforce, because there are peaks and troughs, particularly within the accountancy profession, but within many professional services in particular. And tapping into a pool of people that don't necessarily want to go back to work full time, whether that's, people that have taken career breaks, mums, dads that have been on maternity, paternity, adoption leave, want a different life going forwards, but don't want to say goodbye completely to career. If we can kind of leverage that pool of people through our alumni as well, then we've got a whole pool of untapped talent that really we're not tapping into in the best way that we could right now, to say, well, we've got a peak in August, come and work for us for a couple of months or for a few hours a week. Really, really talented people that are missing out on amazing opportunities because their life's taken them in a different path. And I myself not long returned to work from maternity leave. I would hate to think that my career was dead just because of that, but we know that the world we live in, that can happen. It can really limit opportunities. So it gives us an opportunity to tap into other talent pools that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to before.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that effectively about that seasonal contingent labour, because we hear that a lot. Retirees, part-time contingent labour. We hear a lot about seasonal hires for Christmas shopping, or retirees who might work for one of our bank clients in a town or city where a few hours a week isn't enough of a job for somebody that wants a full-time job, but maybe for someone part-time. Or Northwell Health, who are I hope I get this right if they're listening, the largest healthcare employer in the tri-state area. They are seeking retirees who may not want to have the same job that they had before, but may be able to be part-time admin in one of their hospitals.
Right.
So that's so interesting to hear that from accounting firms. I don't think I've ever really heard that concept of seasonal labour and effectively a professional services firm. But having that pool of people in a basket, as you said, private equity has given that a value, right? You can reach out to people. And it goes back to, I think, which is why you and AD wanted to start with a piece of software and a platform, is if you don't have that information, then you can't do all that clever stuff. So circle in many ways. We have a matter of minutes left, so I'm going to just take one or two questions that I've got here from people, which I think might be interesting to hear your view on. April, do you have an alumni steering committee internally, or do you have a board of current alumni members that meet and greet?
No and no, but we absolutely should. It's a great idea. Thank you. And this is what's going to be great about starting to kind of crowdsource thoughts and feedback from our alumni group, because we haven't gone into this with like a massive master plan. We just knew that this was something we needed to do, and this is something that would evolve. And we did, like I said, we did kind of turn the ship around quite quickly and getting it off the ground with you, because it was just important to take some action. Other people may have a different approach where they need kind of a more strategic approach to it. We've kind of gone the opposite way around, where we've kind of got it out there, and now let's start to evolve it and shape it. But yeah, both great ideas.
Yes, and I know that, right? I know that you made a decision faster than almost anyone that we've ever spoken to, but equally, again, that points to the senior sponsorship, and alumni starts in so many different ways. Well, look, we've had 50 minutes of chat, so I've actually got a little bit of closing housekeeping. I'm not sure that I've got any more ideas to give you from the people listening, April, but no doubt there will be other ideas that will come from other conversations, which leads me on to just flagging to everyone listening, thank you for joining us today. Our next webinar is with 6453. Which, if you think about it, is Nike on the telephone. It's the Power of Stories with Nike Alumni, which will be on the 21st of May. We're really excited to have a conversation with the network co-founder Jana Penfidio and fellow Nike alumnus Misha Cooper Edwards, who's the founder and CEO of Solai Space. So we'll be talking there about building a program, inclusivity, and a lot about communications. And yours, April, has been very, very focused on your wonderful creative branding. And of course, for some others on the line as well, we'll see you, and I'll see you also, April, at the alums in June. We're looking forward to it. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about the Cooper Parry Alumni Network. I'll tell you how long this lasts. When I go home tonight, my family are going to wonder what on earth has happened today that I came home with a dagger and a heart and wings tattooed on my arm. And I will say it is alumni and professional services duly merged into artwork. Thanks so much, April, and thank you to everyone joining. We've really, really enjoyed having you, and it's been a really great learning experience, and we can't wait to watch all the other wonderful creative things, disco bingo, and everything else that might ensue from your alumni network.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Thanks, April.